Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Stand Up Grain Safety 2025. We're here today at the Kent Feed Mill and Grain Science Complex at Iowa State University for our hybrid kickoff event. I'm John Coppert. I'm the Executive Director of the Grain Elevator and Processing Society, JEEPS. If you're one of our online attendees and have technical problems during the demonstration, send a private chat to Sala Issa. Should you be disconnected and have problems, email grainsafety2010@gmail.com. Grain handling is essential to agriculture, but it can also be dangerous. During Stand Up for Grain Safety Week, we come together to focus on something that matters to all of us: safety in grain handling. We are kicking off the event with live safety demonstrations showcasing essential practices for everyone involved in grain handling and inviting industry partners to share how we all have a piece in this. Throughout the week, the Grain Handling Safety Council is offering free virtual learning sessions. These sessions are designed to provide practical, life-saving knowledge for those working in agriculture-related fields. In addition to the standard virtual trainings, we're excited to offer bonus sessions in Spanish to make sure safety knowledge is accessible to everyone in the agriculture industry. If you haven't registered yet, that's not a problem. You can still sign up. Please visit standupforgrainsafety.org. Again, that's standupforgrainsafety.org to reserve your spot. Together, we can make grain handling safer for everyone. So let's stand up for grain safely. Stand Up for Grain Safety Week is a collaboration between the U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, the Grain Handling Safety Council, the Grain Elevator and Processing Society, JEEPS, and the National Grain and Feed Association, NGFA. Now, before we jump into the program, we'd like to thank the sponsors and partners for their support of this week's event. Without our sponsors and partners, an event like this isn't possible. So, Bartlett Grain, Central States Center for Agricultural Safety and Health, Central Valley Ag, Grain and Feed Association of Illinois, Grain Journal, Iowa State University, and the Kent Feed Mill and Grain Science Complex, Kansas State University, Lamar Advertising Company, C.L. Jones Consulting, LLC, Union Pacific Railroad, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and the University of Illinois Extension. Today and throughout the week, we want to hear from you. You can use the chat box, and it would be great if you participate in the polls that will pop up on your screen. So let's start with a chat question just to get the conversation started. Tell us in the chat box where you're joining us from. It's always interesting to see a wide variety of our international participants and the number of states that we have. Now let's try a poll. Tell us if you are watching this event by yourself or if others are joining you on the same device. Just click the appropriate response. It's as easy as that. Thank you for participating and answering those questions. Now, as we get started on our safety conversation, let's remember our rights and responsibilities, both as employees and employers. As an employer, whether you fall under OSHA enforcement or not, you're still responsible for providing a work environment free of known hazards. Employees have a right to a safe and healthy work environment, the right to be compensated for hours worked, and the right to report violations without fear of retaliation. Let's all remember that important phrase, safe and healthy workplace, this week as we talk about the different hazards and challenges we face. And now I'd like to introduce Larry Johnson, Director, Iowa Department of Inspections, Appeals, and Licensing.
Thanks for having me. Great, thank you. Hey, good morning and thank you for having me. My name is Larry Johnson. I'm the Director of Iowa Department of Inspections, Appeals, and Licensing. And when government realigned a year ago, we took and have the division of OSHA here in Iowa. So, and with me is my Consultation Bureau Chief, Peggy Peterson, and OSHA Administrator and Labor Commissioner, Adam Lathrop. It's a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate Iowa State University and Kent Mill and Grain Science Complex for hosting the 2025 Stand Up for Grain Safety kickoff. I understand it's the first time that Stand Up for Grain Safety has been hosted by an OSHA state plan, so I really appreciate everyone joining us today. Iowans are known for their extensive farming, with over 85% of the state's land used for agriculture, and we're a leading national producer in quite a few things, including corn, soybeans, raising livestock like pigs and cattle. According to the Coalition to Support Iowa Farmers, agriculture-related industries are responsible for 385,000 jobs in Iowa and close to $160 billion to the Iowa economy. This is dangerous work. It's important work. The agriculture and animal production industries are among the most hazardous sectors, with an injury rate nearly twice of all other industries. As you know, the hazards associated with ag and industry include heavy equipment operation, exposure to chemicals, environmental hazards, physical demands on the body, engulfment hazards, and combustible dust explosions. The most current data from Agriculture Safety and Health Program at Purdue University shows that in 2022, 9 of the 42 reported grain entrapments occurred here in Iowa. As each of you know, one is just too many, and I appreciate the importance each of you are placing on preventing this from happening. The numbers don't lie. Grain handling and ag are important to Iowa, as they are to our counterparts in other states across the nation, and it's an industry that relies on its employees. Thank you for being here and doing everything we can to keep everyone safe. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Larry. It's great to have you and your team joining us here today on the campus of Iowa State University. Well, now we're going to head outside to a special location where Dirk Meyer is. Got to admit, for folks that are online, I'm a little bit jealous because it's a beautiful, beautiful morning outside here in central Iowa. But we're going to be going to Dirk on location. Dirk is the director of the Kent Feed Mill and Grain Science Complex, and Dirk is going to share with us his insights. Let's head over and let's welcome Dirk Meyer. And as Dirk is joining us today, please don't forget to drop your questions and your comments in the chat box. It's available for your utilization. So with that, let's turn things over to Dirk.
Thank you, John. Hopefully you can hear me okay. All right. Welcome to Iowa State University and the Kent Feed Mill and Grain Science Complex. It's a real privilege to have all of you join us, including people here that joined us live in the classroom and out here at the grain facility. I'm Dirk Meyer. I'm a professor in agricultural and biosystems engineering and animal science, and I serve as the director of this ISU Kent Feed Mill and Grain Science Complex. We produce commercial feed for a poultry layer genetics company in our feed mill tower Monday through Friday for 12 hours a day, and that provides the opportunity for us to train students on how to properly operate the business of feed manufacturing, agro-processing. So that's our primary purpose, is to prepare students. But with that mission comes the responsibility of keeping everybody safe here at work, whether it's our student trainees, whether it's our staff, our faculty, students that are coming in for classes, industry that's coming in for programs, just as the one here today. We want to keep everybody safe at all times. So all of our employees have to complete a series of 10 safety modules before they're allowed to work here. And every class that comes here that utilizes the facility also has to, at the beginning of the semester, go through a safety orientation, as does every program and every person that participates in the program, as we did here this morning as well. So given this context, I'm sure we'll appreciate that managing traffic as one of the aspects of a complex like this is something that we have to pay particular attention to. Of course, at a commercial grain elevator, you receive typically way many more trucks than we do. However, we do receive quite a diversity of traffic here with regard to incoming corn and ingredient delivery trucks, trucks that are picking up bulk feed, as we have one in the driveway right now that's waiting to be loaded, and as well tractor trailers that are coming in for warehouse deliveries out back, and other vehicle traffic going in and out, including students and faculty for classes, contractors for repair and maintenance, industry professionals like you are here for coming trainings, as well as every once in a while we get some nosy people that don't really have business of being here, but nevertheless they're coming onto the facility, and we have to be concerned about their safety as well. Well, you see in the background when you look at the driveway, an ISU grain truck, and he is positioned at the entrance gate and in such a position that he's off the highway. And that's, of course, always one of those challenges, too, that you have to deal with at a commercial grain facility, especially during the harvest season when traffic is heavy and longer lines form. You have to figure out how to get your truck off the highway and lined up on your property. That can be an additional challenge, too, particularly when you have a facility that's also situated near rail tracks, and sometimes you have traffic build up that might block trucks from pulling into your facility as a result. So here when corn and bulk ingredient delivery trucks pull in, they first have to drive onto the scale, which is doing at this point in time, and every of the bulk deliverers have to pull onto the scale first. And I think we're going to have a map basically pulled up for the audience that will basically see at our facility how we have our scale in the middle of the driveway, and that is particularly designed so that we don't get crisscrossing of traffic in and out, because as the bulk trucks get weighed in, that basically triggers the receiving ticket, and that receiving ticket has to be initiated here in the scale house, and then we have a traffic light that holds the truck on that position until they've been weighed and allowed to proceed to the next station, which for corn deliveries is basically at the probe. So I think we can set aside here the map. Feed trucks do not cross the scale because they're loaded using 2 certified 3-ton overhead scales inside the loadout bay, which is very typical for feed mills and other facilities. And so the traffic lane in front of the loadout and receiving bay is basically 2-lane traffic, parallel traffic, as you can see with the trucks lining up here. And the corn trucks basically moves from the scale to the probe, where samples are taken and analyzed for grade, moisture, as well as mycotoxins. Now we can probe from that location. We can also probe remotely. Once the truck is probed, they are required to stay at that spot till the sample is analyzed. As a feed facility, mycotoxins is a feed safety concern, and so we test for 6 mycotoxins, and that takes about 15 to 20 minutes before the truck is then allowed to proceed into the receiving bay, unless, of course, there's something wrong with the grade or with the amount of mycotoxins that might have been detected before they can get into the receiving bay. Trucks delivering bulk ingredients such as soybean meal, soy hulls, limestone, wheat mitts, and DGs, they carry a sample typically with them that they test, that they drop off for quality testing. And so if warranted, we can also grab a sample during the unloading, but we try to avoid that for safety reasons too. Bulk delivery trucks and feed trucks, again, travel parallel into the receiving loadout bays respectively. And we want to make sure that any other traffic stays out of these particular lanes and are kept in the visitor parking area or stopping in terms of traffic before those delivery trucks have taken on their particular location. So one aspect that's important is how do we communicate with our drivers, as you saw illustrated here. The delivery truck drivers, typically the gate is open, they pull onto the scale, they follow the traffic cop as colors in terms of green and red proceed. And then once they are stationed where they are, for example, the feed truck gets a separate walkie-talkie radio from our production crew. And before they can pull in and are ready to load that truck, so they're on a different communication channel, for example. And then our personnel walks into the receiving bay area and then waves the truck in, which is kind of the next spot that we do. So generally speaking, we're dealing with same delivery truck drivers, so signaling communication by hand or by radio works fairly well, and then signage is indicated on the map also helps to orient new drivers in that regard. Additionally, we have site security cameras that are also monitored at several locations inside the facility so that we can see somebody arriving on campus at any moment in time and get them oriented as we need to. Our general goal is to schedule deliveries for certain days and time periods during the week to kind of minimize cross traffic with other classes and so forth and so on, but as you well know, that doesn't always work perfectly. Now, the other important thing is for us to protect our employees. And so, for example, as you see, the corn truck has been lined up, and our employee does not move. They have high-vis vests on, and to make sure that the driver can see him in the rearview mirror. Generally, grain grading takes us longer because we have to check for 6 different mycotoxins, but bulk delivery trucks are not allowed to enter the bay until the attending employee is situated and gives them basically the signal to proceed. And employees that are stationed inside the receiving bay, they're also not allowed to move until while the truck is in motion, so that the driver can see them in their rear view mirror. As you can see, our bay is generous in terms of width, but nevertheless, we have to make very sure that trucks and drivers are aware of employees, as you also have the same concern at any grain elevator and so forth. Given most hopper trailers have automatic gates that are controlled by the driver with a remote, we require the driver to step out of their truck and confirm with the attending employee that it is okay to start the unloading process. We have a 1,000-bushel pit that allows for a hopper trailer to unload within 2 to 3 minutes, and if stopped in the correct spot, avoids having to move the vehicle during unloading. We consider that a best safety practice to ensure both employee and driver safety. Again, given the probe sample has been taken, there's no need for an employee to bend under the hopper or get in the way of the unloading of the corn, and so we don't fetch samples during the unloading process. And then once the trailer is empty, the driver has closed the gates and returns to the cab. Again, the employee must assume their position along the west wall and signal the driver all clear before the driver is allowed to pull off the pit and out of the bay. For other bulk deliveries, such as soybean meal, DDG, soy hulls, limestone, and so forth, the same safety practices apply, but it takes us longer to unload those vehicles, and so that's a little bit more of an involved process. So I hope that this brief review about the importance of traffic patterns for worker and driver safety reminds us all how critical it is to communicate with all employees and drivers regarding the importance of safety doing truck deliveries, whether bulk or warehouse, as well as doing bulk feed pickup. It's important that everyone follows consistent traffic pattern, observes the speed limits, and also that personal vehicles yield to commercial vehicles. It's also important that employees wear high-vis clothing especially during the harvest season when we have many trucks delivering corn, particularly during the daytime. Last but not least, we expect drivers to stay with their vehicles inside the receiving and loadout bays while loading or unloading for safety and biosecurity purposes. And I'd have to say over the past year, as we've gotten our first harvest season behind us, we're very successful in working with the ISU farms that were delivering corn here, and we have not had a single reportable accident at this facility involving deliveries and traffic. And so we appreciate everybody paying attention to that and adhering to that, as it is, of course, also very important at every commercial facility that every day we think about this interaction between our employees and delivery vehicles that we're faced with. With that, John, I'll give it back to you.
Dirk, that's some great information that Dirk just provided. For the folks that are viewing online, or for those of us that are here in person, including like Jess McClure and the Sukup boys, you know, you might have a question already. I can see Jess just waiting for the microphone. But seriously, for those that are joining today, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat box. Let's get into some questions. I'm going to go ahead and start it off, though, if you all don't mind. So Dirk, question for you. I've spent the entirety of my career in the grain processing industry. You know, the last 20 years in the ethanol industry. Everybody knows that an ethanol plant essentially starts off as a grain elevator. But Dirk, talk to us a little bit about the traffic pattern out there that you described, and how not only to ensure safety through a traffic pattern with the truck traffic, but also how do you protect and preserve biosecurity with that traffic pattern? So go ahead, Dirk.
Well, that's a very good question, and biosecurity is basically defined for us that we try to keep, well, the loadout bay where the feed truck goes through is only reserved for that feed truck. And that feed truck, after it leaves our facility and before it arrives at our facility, and it is managed by our customer partner, has to go through a spray down at a nearby truck wash. And the receiving bay area, we consider that part of our dirty area, and that's where we don't require shoe covers and so forth when we walk around and whatnot. But that also makes it important that between the receiving bay area and the loadout bay area, if our employees cross that, they have to go through where we scrub off our shoes before we walk into that area. So it's very important to do that, and it will be especially important when you have trucks coming from animal facilities in particular to maintain biosecurity and manage that proactively.
So Dirk, we've got a question in the chat box that really builds upon what you and I just talked about. I'm going to read the question, but I'm going to summarize it to get to the specific of the question. So, in today's agriculture industry, when thinking about a facility or thinking about a plant that might be nearby or even on the existing grounds of a plant, do they need to preserve some area? Do they need to preserve some land around that plant to better secure biosecurity?
Well, I would say yes. So for example, what we try to do on this 10-acre site, which is in the process of being fenced in, to not have any standing water, because that attracts like Canadian geese that are flying through right now, and we try not for them to stop through here and get to a water puddle or some sort. And so continue to grade this facility so that we have that, manage that process. The other part is we do have additional space here on our property, or that we can also build a truck wash if and when we were to need to have more biosecurity proactively for any vehicles that are driving in, whether a visitor, employee, or delivery vehicle as well. So we have not gone there yet, but we have the property to do that, and we have plans previously that we laid out.
Okay, great. Do we have any more questions? I'm not seeing any in the chat box right now. So I'm going to bounce a final one off of you, Dirk. First off, for the folks that are here at the Kent Feed Mill Complex, I think you would agree what an amazing facility here in Ames. For those that have not been here, I'd strongly encourage you to come visit. It's fantastic. That being said, Dirk, when we build a facility like this, it's part of a learning experience, right? Through experience, we learn, we grow. So Dirk, if there's one thing that you've learned since the facility has come online, particularly with the traffic pattern, is there something that you would change or do differently?
Well, yes. I mean, at this facility here, we try to lay it out as best as possible within this area. If we had more ground, we would have probably have a separate inlet versus outlet type of a drive so that people don't drive across the same area as we have, which is the reason we had to lay the scale out the way we did. So I think that probably one thing that we would do different, but we're a little bit landlocked between two state highways so that we're limited to only have one drive in and out. That would be one thing we probably would change.
Very good, Dirk. We've got time for one more question. We have Jess McClure with the NGFA with us. I'm going to step off camera here so Jess can ask a question. Thank you, Jess.
Thanks, John, for putting me on the spot. So you put me on the spot, so I thought I'd ask a question. But Dirk, so I think, and you may have addressed this, and if you did, I apologize if I missed it, but hazard and control measures for pedestrians. So walkways and signage, I know that's also a very important part, and I don't know if that's something you wanted to kind of cover how that's addressed here at this facility, especially certain times there can be a lot more activity at a facility than other times. You can have multiple pieces of equipment moving around. You can have multiple pedestrians moving around. There could be lots of activity. So I don't know if you wanted to cover that real quick.
Yeah, just you're pointing towards an important aspect to try to balance the thing of a production facility with also being an education and training facility. And so we have visitor parking, we have orientation and instruction that gets sent to people before they come on site, and we expect them to follow those. So when they come on site, they're supposed to check in. They're not supposed to get out of their vehicles and wander around the facility. We have a location where our contractors park and check in, and we meet every contractor, we meet every visitor, and we accompany everybody here on site as well, whether they have been here many times as a contractor or not, get them to their spot. They have to also, of course, follow biosecurity protocol because we're allowing them to work inside the facility. And so you're very right, that is something has to be actively monitored and addressed on every day.
Very good. Everybody, thank you for those fantastic questions. And I'd like to encourage folks to just continue to put questions, comments in the chat box. That's what we're all here for today. We're going to be hearing from Dirk and his team a little bit later. But while we transition to our next outdoor location, we're going to play a short video about this amazing Kent Feed Mill and Grain Science Complex. Enjoy this video.
Since celebrating the opening of the ISU Kent Feed Mill and Grain Science Complex a year ago, we've been very busy. So in 2023, we have had over 1,500 visitors from about 14 different countries. In 2024 so far, we've had about 1,350 visitors from 17 different countries. So this included in-person, on-site training of industry professionals from a number of different countries, including Algeria, China, Kenya, the Philippines, Uganda, Nigeria, Rwanda, and several other countries. We're already making a global impact. We're also making an impact right here in Iowa. For example, a week ago, we've trained 18 industry professionals from the Iowa grain industry in partnership with the Agribusiness Association of Iowa. So November 2023 was our first month of production, and we made about 250 tons that month that went to a commercial partner. Today, our monthly production is at 800 tons a month with the help of our student employees. Through this work and our program, we are preparing the next generation of ag leaders. During the summer, we employed 4 undergraduate students full-time, and we hosted a full-time intern that we trained at the facility as well. During the semester, there's about 30 to 35 students every week that utilize the facility for their classwork. This number of students that are both here for courses and for employment are taking courses such as the feed processing technology course that's required to complete the feed technology minor. So our student teams are responsible for learning the theoretical and practical knowledge that they need to operate a feed manufacturing facility and utilize their knowledge for automation system, quality control, how this impacts animal nutrition, and how the business of feed manufacturing really takes place in support of Iowa agriculture. We are furthering our student offerings through our new feed mill technology traineeship program that allows students to work in the plant, in the grain handling center, in the pilot plant, in the quality lab, to learn more about the subject, expand their experiential learning, and are sponsored by companies to further their interest and experience in feed technology. In addition, students, faculty, and external customers can utilize the new state-of-the-art pilot plant, which came online in May, for researching smaller batches of diets in support of animal nutrition and ingredient research. As you can see, the complex is a busy hub of activities preparing ag leaders and supporting Iowa's grain and feed and livestock and bioprocessing industries in support of rural agriculture and communities throughout the state. We're looking forward to welcoming perhaps as many as another 500 visitors throughout the calendar year, including prospective students. A key goal for us is to continue to increase the enrollment in our feed technology minor, and in the future also introduce a certificate that could be offered to community colleges. Our staff have been invited to collaborate on a number of projects, including in countries such as Colombia, Tunisia, and Ukraine. And going forward, we will also offer continuing education courses for industry professionals from all over the world. And finally, we've set our production goal in the feed mill tower to reach 1,000 tons a month and to begin increasing the research diets that we'll be making in our pilot plant. There's no way that this complex would have happened without all the donors. The vision for this complex was always about preparing the next generation of ag leaders. And the donors basically bought into this vision of investing in a facility that allows us to prepare students for the future. Are we back? Okay, so let me introduce Dr. George Overnak-Grofi, who is going to take us through the next kind of live safety demo that we're here on. George, all yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maya. Hi, everyone. My name is George Obin-Akrofi. I'm a research engineer here and also manage the pilot plant for our facility. Over the years, I've also been involved in recruiting student employees and mentoring them through our traineeship program that helped them to gain hands-on experience and hands-on training as they prepare for the industry. Aside from that, today I'll be working with you on some simple maintenance activities that we take care of here in our facility. Usually, one thing we do not always have to forgo is the importance of safety audits. Before the operation of this facility, we have to have a safety audit to see how we stand in terms of every aspect of our facility. So if you can look right behind me in the background, there are various mottos which are up there. And one question that we may have to ask ourselves is how easy can we access these kind of motors up there. So yes, of course, we have seen a room for improvement here in our facility, and over the coming months, we will be installing a work platform up there which will enable us to have access to the motors, to have access to certain equipment safely. That way we can undertake our preventive maintenance such as greasing and other stuff like that. Moving on to the second aspect, which is mainly with maintenance, we have to deal with taking care of dust, taking care of explosion, right? Right here, we have our bag house, right? And just as Dr. Maya said, we have a lot of student employees, and usually most of them have access to a whole lot of things. There is a ladder here. Without this lock on the ladder, it will be accessible to any intruder. So one of the important things that we have here is a ladder lock, right? All our keys are back in our grain center, where any person that has to access this bag house to carry out preventive maintenance, in addition to locking out the main equipment, will have to have access to the ladder. So right here in my hand, we have this key. I will open up this ladder. Then we take it off, lay it somewhere safe, and right now I have access to this ladder to climb up there to the bag house, pick up some of these socks and clean them as I usually would. For the sake of this program, I won't go up there, but I have right here how the inside of the bag house looks, right? So we have these frames, and right on the frames, there are socks as shown in my left hand right here, right? These socks are supposed to sieve out all the dust, and with our pneumatic system, we give it a knock for all these dust and smaller particles to fall back into our grain handling line. So as a preventive manager, my goal is to make sure that this socks is as clean as possible by also taking note of some gauge readings up there to make sure that the static pressure is right where we need them to be. So looking at this, this is how we would want things to look before we start our operation, specifically when we are handling dried grains and taking out dust from the receiving bay. Right after this is done, we take up this ladder and then lock. Oh, pardon, it's a little windy today, so. All right. And then just as I'm the owner of the key for today, I'll make sure I keep it and take it back to where that belongs. Next off, I'll take us to our grain drying bin, my grain dryer. Right here is our grain dryer, a Sucap mixed flow grain dryer. Right? There are lots of moving parts, there are lots of things that we have to do on there in order to prepare it for the drying harvest season. But one of the most important things that I want to show today is with regards to the moisture sensor, right? The goal of the grain dryer is to dry the grains to the point where we can have dried grains. But what will be its use if this moisture sensor is not working properly? Usually, with this sensor, we get buildup of material here, which tends to give them false readings. So as part of preventive maintenance, our goal is to make sure we have the sensor as clean as it's shown here, right? And then you have to make sure that the hookup points on these points are also as secured as possible. Just where you do not have false readings or you do not have readings that do not match where they are supposed to be. Another important aspect with regards to this sensor is the flow of the material as is indicated on the sensor. You have to make sure that you get this installed to ensure that there is the right flow of the material in there. All right, so today we got a chance to have two main things discussed. Talked about the bag house and some few things that we needed to talk about with regards to the grain dryer. But before I wrap everything up and call for questions, I also have a question for you, the audience, to know that how well do the rescue teams in your facility or close to your facility, how well do they know the facility where you operate? We have had the opportunity to have the Ames Fire Department and the Grounds Fire Department tour our facility and also have training here. So in the event of anything, right, with regards to handling grain, they know here, they know what to expect, and they know how to work effectively to give out a timely rescue operation should there be the need. So the question is, how well is your facility known to these people? Thank you.
George, thanks so much for reminding us of that. And that also reminds me that we do have rescue tubes here on site. They are also available for any local fire department that may not have one available. And yet also during this training, Nationwide was generous enough to provide a rescue tube to us as well as local fire rescue department. So what questions do we have coming in, John?
Again, I gotta admit, I'm having some FOMO that I'm not out there on this beautiful central Iowa day. Let's see here. Folks can pull up the chat box for me where I can maybe see it a bit better to see the questions that are coming in. But George, I'm gonna tee one up first with this. George, talk to us a little bit about communication. You know, how the team here at Iowa State, how the team at the Kent Mill Feed and Grain Science Complex, how do you communicate not only about maintenance needs, but any ongoing projects? How's that communicated amongst the team?
All right, John, thanks for the question. So just as you can see, we have radios, and usually one person doesn't go to an equipment to carry out any maintenance activity or any operation here on the facility. So first off, we know that a specific operation has to be taken care of. There are at least 2 employees that are going to take care of this operation. And then we have radios to take care of communication, just as to give updates on how things are going. So all the managers have this going on, and all the employees are also aware that whenever they are on site, they should have radios to help us be in communication with whatever that is going on with them for every operation.
So I think for all of our participants, whether you're in person or joining virtual, and my goodness, it's wonderful to see the nearly 300 participants that we have joining us virtual. But George just said something really key in there, awareness, right? Bringing awareness by way of information. George, we've got another question. This one is in the chat box. It comes to us from Derek Swanson. Derek, thank you for the question. George, talk to us about what physical security and surveillance equipment that you have. That's the question from Derek. But Derek also has a statement that says with his organization that they find a lot of value in being able to capture incidents as they occur because they're on camera, and we know that the video and the cameras, they don't lie. So again, George, talk about physical security, surveillance, whether it's through cameras or other assets.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can start with it and let Dirk also comment more about it. For us, we have surveillance securities around the facility and also some points in the facility. With regards to surveillance around, is also just as you said, mainly for communication, right? When a truck pulls in, just as deck shows, we should be in a position to see that this truck is someone that is welcome here, and then the right operator will be in position to carry out the operation that needs to be carried out, be it probing of grain, receiving grain, or delivering feed. I think I'll let Derek also talk more about with regards to surveillance.
I would add to that that we have Wi-Fi throughout the entire facility, all the working floors, and we're in the process of adding additional observational throughout the facility, including around the bin facility as well. So we very much agree that that's a very important aspect, not so much to really keep track of employees that they're doing something wrong, but really to also, because we have relatively few people, making sure that we know where people are, that we're in communication with them, and that we help to keep everybody safe if we ever observe something on a camera where there would be an unsafe behavior that we can then follow up with. And so that's a key aspect that we agree with, that we will add additional cameras. That's part of the plan that we have not yet been able to complete.
Yeah, very, very good. We've got one final question here, and it comes from Catherine, and I think it is a fantastic question that I'm actually going to tie into a little bit with like chain of custody, right? When we talk about grain sampling, mycotoxin testing, all these things, there's this thing called chain of custody. But Catherine's question is specific to the latter example that you gave, George. And Catherine's question is this: who has the key to the ladder? Who's the keeper of the key? And do individuals, do they have to sign out whenever they take the key? And then, and then when they return it. So the key to the ladder. Great question, Catherine.
All right, no, absolutely. This is an incredible question and a good point to note that the grain center manager, we have a key box in the grain center, and the grain center manager has a form that shows who is taking out what particular key to either lock out, tag out the ladders, and also some of the lockout, tag out of equipment that we have here at the facility. So the keys are not just laying out there haphazardly. We have them kept in seed boxes, key boxes, where the manager of the facility knows what key is going in and out at every point in time.
The additional aspect is that we have electronic doors throughout the entire facility, and that tracks everybody's entry if you're using a key fob to enter the facility through any door. And so that also helps us to track security in that regard throughout the facility.
Yeah, very, very good. I think that we've all learned something that so far this morning. George, fantastic presentation, incredible information for those that have been posing the questions in the chat box. Thank you, and again, I encourage folks to continue and continue and continue to utilize the chat box. That's what it's there for. Dirk, George, thank you so much. So I want to give a round of thanks to the first two presenters that we've had this morning, both Dirk and George. They did a great job. But now I'm going to take a moment to introduce my good friend, Jess McClure. Jess is Senior Vice President of Safety and Regulatory with National Grain and Feed Association. And Jess is going to share with us NGFA's piece in this puzzle of keeping everyone safe. So Jess, good morning.
John, thank you very much for having me here, and thank you everybody for joining Stand Up for Grain Safety Week. Especially thank you here to Iowa State for hosting this event. Great opportunity. My first time visiting this facility. I'm looking forward to going on the tour afterwards. This is great. It's really good to see a lot of familiar faces here too. Our president and CEO, Mike Seifert, was unable to attend due to scheduling conflicts, but does send his regards. I want to thank Jeeps. John, thank you, the Grain Handling Safety Council, and OSHA for bringing the entire industry together to focus on safety each year. Just as this year's theme and topics highlight, we all have a piece in this. At NGFA, we champion the individuals who transform America's harvest into feed, fuel, and fiber. Ensuring their safety is our primary concern as we strive to cultivate healthy workplaces. To achieve this goal, we are dedicated to creating and sharing safety resources covering everything from hazard awareness to regulatory compliance and best practices in grain handling, feed, and processing facilities. We make these tools readily available at ngfa.org/safety. We also welcome the opportunity to partner with like-minded organizations and are always willing to participate in safety seminars, workshops all across this country. We would also like to thank our member company, Union Pacific, for being part of this year's program with their rail safety presentation on Thursday. And some of you may recall that as part of NGFA's ongoing commitment to enhancing safety resources, we've partnered with the safety professional Joe Melnick. And together we aim to deliver even more timely and effective resources, including videos, training manuals, and guidance documents focused on safe handling, grain handling, and regulatory compliance. Most recently, we added a tip sheet on angle of repose hazards. I hope you'll check it out, and would also like to thank the Grain and Feed Association of Illinois for the material that we put in that came directly from Grain and Feed Association of Illinois. So also keep an eye out for new webinars that we're hosting this year, especially during our annual Harvest Safety Week, August 11th through the 15th, where we focus efforts on addressing heightened hazards during the busy harvest season. Participating in Stand Up Week is a privilege for the NGFA, as it provides a vital platform for on-safety discussions. As we embark on this week-long initiative, I urge each of you to seize the opportunity to engage in conversations about grain handling, job hazards, and your company's safety policies. To facilitate these discussions, please explore the wide range of resources available at standupforgrainsafety.org and ngfa.org/safety. Everything we do, big and small, organizing a brief safety training session, hosting a company-wide event, or simply sharing a safety reminder contributes to fostering a safer workplace. That's what matters most. We all have a piece in this, so let's come together this week, not only to participate in the scheduled sessions, but also to share your own stand-up events with our alliance partners, Jeeps and the Grain Handling Safety Council. Thank you for your dedication to safety, and here's to a productive and safe stand-up week. Thank you, John.
Well, and Jess, I'd like to keep you up here with me for a second as we're getting ready to go on break. I not only want to thank NGFA for their partnership and efforts and all this, but I want to personally thank Jess. Most of you know that I've only been with Jeeps for about a year and a half, and the year and a half that I've been with Jeeps, Jess is serving as an incredible mentor to me, particularly in these areas of collaboration, in this area in particular of safety. And in addition to the mentorship, I really appreciate the friendship. Jess, it's been fantastic. I really appreciate it. So what we're gonna do now, folks, is we're gonna take about a 5-minute break. I know a number of my Jeeps colleagues are online and they've been waiting for an opportunity to grab a cup of coffee. So whether you grab a cup of coffee, a snack, or just those who are in person, have a little bit of networking time. So we're gonna have this 5-minute break, and straight up 5 minutes, we'll get started again. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we're going? All right. Welcome back, everybody. Hope everybody had a great break. Let's jump back into the action here. Let's get re-engaged. We're going to do that by doing a quick chat storm. I'm not sure I know what that is, but I'm going to learn right now. So drop in the chat an insight from this morning's demos that you're going to bring back to your group. And if we can pull that up on the screen here where I can see it, that would be great. So let's see what everybody is thinking about that one item or two from this morning's demos that you can bring back to your employer or to your group. You got me? Let's see what some folks are saying here.
Hold on, nothing right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, the folks online are being a little shy about what they learn. I know the folks online won't hear it, but what about my folks in person, right? You saw and heard live what was going on outside from the guys from Keen Project Engineering. Now you're on the spot. What are you going to take back to your team that you learned this morning? Go ahead.
Not a problem. So Dirk did a great job talking about biosecurity and as far as truck traffic and the routing, thinking about that. So when you're in design phase, and understanding what you're looking for at that point in time in an area when you're putting in a new feed spot. So
yeah,
I think that this conversation was a great conversation to reference back.
Yeah, it was really good. Anything else? Anything else that we heard from either Dirk or George that we really enjoyed this morning? Oh yeah, ensuring proper traffic flow shared by Jason Brown, Jeff Turk. Enjoyed hearing about the sampling, biosecurity. I really enjoyed the sampling that you showed out there, Dirk, and taking me back to my old world, hearing about the mycotoxin testing that you do here. That's fantastic. So folks, again, continue to use, speed limit signs posted. Are there speed limit signs out there, Dirk? Just yell it out real loud.
Yeah.
Not yet. What will be the speed limit around the complex?
10 miles an hour.
10 miles per hour. 10 miles per hour whenever you roll into the facility. So these are all great questions, comments, thoughts from the audience. But now we're excited to hear from our friends with Iowa OSHA on site with us here at the Kent Feed Mill and Grain Science Complex. So please join me in welcoming Adam Lathrop, Iowa OSHA Division Administrator. Adam, good morning.
Thank you, and thanks for having us up here today. Appreciate the time. As we're here kicking off the Stand Up for Grain Safety Week, this week is about raising awareness, sharing knowledge, and reinforcing a commitment to safety. At the end of the day, we all know this, but nothing is more important than making sure every worker goes home safe. Iowa OSHA plays a vital role in protecting employers across the state, especially in high-risk industries like agriculture and grain handling. As part of the Division of Inspections, Appeals, and Licensing, Iowa OSHA reinforces safety standards, conducts inspections, and provides training and consultation to help prevent workplace injuries and fatalities. Our goal is not just compliance, but it's creating a culture where safety is second nature. We all know the hazards involved in grain handling, but injuries are largely preventable. Iowa offers consultation and education services that are at no cost and confidential. Unfortunately, this resource is largely untapped within the grain handling industry. So as we're here today, raising awareness to the hazards within grain handling, I also want to take this time to raise the awareness that Iowa OSHA is here to help. We are not just a regulatory agency, we also are here to be a resource as well. So with me today is Peggy Peterson. She is the Consultation and Education Bureau Chief. So if there are any questions out there, please feel free to either touch base with her or myself. Events like Stand Up for Grain Safety Week are so important. They remind us that safety is not just a regulation, it's a responsibility. Iowa OSHA is here as a resource, ready to help businesses and workers understand best practices, identify the hazards, and create safer workplaces. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you again for you and your team being with us here today. Now, up next, we have Dr. James Wright, who will be talking to us about sound hazards. Let's give James a very warm welcome. James? Oh.
James had surgery.
Well, you know, now's where John gets to be John and throw the script out the window. So what we're going to do collectively, though, is whether you're virtual or in person, we're gonna extend best wishes to James that I just learned had surgery. Can somebody call FTD so we can get this poor man some flowers? Doggone. But hey, I don't know James, but I sure know Dr. Gretchen Mosier, and I learned that Gretchen is now up next. So Gretchen, I guess you're going to talk about sound hazards or maybe what we're going to have for lunch. Either way, Gretchen, you're up next, so go ahead.
I sure am going to talk about sound hazards.
Thanks, Gretchen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, John. And I am Gretchen Mosier. I'm not James Wright, obviously, for those of you who have met Dr. Wright. I'm a professor at Iowa State University, and my teaching and research emphasis areas are process improvements and in quality and safety, particularly as they relate to the grain and feed handling sector. So with that, I'm going to move these slides along. And our first topic is on hearing prevention and hearing promotion, you could say. And that's why we thought we would take a humorous approach. And, you know, our theme for today is how to keep yourself out of the paper, how to keep your facility out of the newspaper, if any of us actually read the newspaper anymore. But ultimately, our title is Say What? And Tips for Preventing Hearing Loss. And I don't know if I have, okay, here we go. So, noise comes from us from all directions, right? We don't necessarily get noise exposure just at work. It happens all around us. And I think one of my primary themes this morning, I guess, is it's not necessarily how loud it is. And I think we often think about the loudness of the exposure that we have. It is also how long we are exposed to that noise. We also know that when you can't hear things, it's a major impact on your life and your quality of life. So it is not something that is just going to be a problem at work. It will be a problem wherever you're at. OSHA requires that employers implement some type of hearing conservation program when your noise that you are exposed to during the day is at 85 decibels or above for, on average, an 8-hour workday. Oops. And with that, I'm going to drop this into the chat, or someone is going to drop it into the chat. Which of these is a true statement about hearing loss? Which of these statements? So I'll give you a minute to think. I guess I have to say go, go. Go. Sorry, didn't read the slide. I see a lot of A's and C's. Okay, I think keep answering, but ultimately, which of these is a true statement? I wouldn't be here today if A was true and you cannot prevent hearing loss. Of course you can. It's always preventable. The question is it reversible? And it is not. Once you lose that hearing, it is gone. And I'll show you a slide in a minute that illustrates that more clearly. Hearing loss results from loud noises over long periods of time. That is true as well. It can. And hearing protection is expensive and ineffective. I don't think you expect that I'm going to agree with that in this presentation, right? Clearly not the case. And how loud is too loud? So this is a great graphic from our friends at the Great Plains Center for Ag Safety and Health over in Iowa City at the University of Iowa. How loud is too loud? You can see it's not just the loudness, it is the time involved with that loud noise exposure. And at the top of the list, not all of these things are in the grain elevator, but many of them are, and particularly machinery, especially machinery with no cab on it. Blowers, saws. We don't have a lot of pigs squealing in a grain elevator generally. Sometimes we see that. But air compressors, shop vacs, things like that, it is loud when equipment is running. And so having that hearing protection is important all the time, I would say. And it's not just me that says it. And your ears, as I mentioned earlier, once they are damaged, there's no undamaging them, right? They're damaged, just as a field of corn, when it is hit with a storm, is damaged. So are the little hairs in your ears, the cilia in your ears, look healthy, and this is what they look like when they're damaged. And you could see that that damage, they don't just come back to life, right? That's gone. And many of us use those little earbuds to listen to all sorts of things, podcasts and music and whatever else. So we are likely having some noise exposure even outside of the job. And I don't think I'm telling you anything you don't already know. Over half of farmers, and I would extend that potentially to those working in this industry, have reported difficulty hearing conversation, hearing television, and the radio. And we just had a conversation about this morning where my colleague Ellen Dyson said she was at a basketball game and her app was telling her that it was loud at the basketball game, right? It probably is. And kids are much more sensitive about saying, this is too loud for me, putting their hands over their ears, things like that. We're used to it as adults. And so when I go to a concert, my watch will beep at me and say, it's loud in here. Your hearing is being damaged, right? Those are good warnings for us because they are true. And sometimes it doesn't take only a couple things. So where are those loud noises in your facility? And if you have some thoughts on this, drop them in the chat, please. Getting my sign ready. Hammer mill, definitely. I'm going to keep moving because I'm on a time schedule here, but ultimately, we have some strategies for noise reduction. And like we do in safety, we separate those into engineering controls, administrative controls, and more personal controls, that personal protective equipment or PPE. I'm going to start at the top and move down. So there are things you can do from an engineering control perspective, things like making sure that your equipment is running. As George mentioned outside, that equipment maintenance, keeping that at a lower level of noise is important and can help control and mitigate unnecessary noise that is definitely preventable. Also putting in place some silencers or something else that might move that noise down so it's not quite as loud. Also administrative controls, including rotating employees out of noisy areas so that they're not working in a space for 8 hours a day, right? Maybe only for part of the day, as well as providing them a place to take a break or to step away from that loud noise. I once worked at a place where the lunchroom was even loud, right? So you can't even get away from it while you're eating your lunch. A quiet place to take a break is always helpful, and I think helpful in other ways as well. And then finally, and this is probably the least effective in terms of what we do in safety, but personal protective equipment. And we're going to show you some great examples right now. And I'm going to invite my colleague Ellen Dyson up here to talk through some of these examples and to model them for us. And she's also responsible for keeping me on task. So
I've got a lot of jobs today.
yes, so I'll give you the mic.
Right. And we don't have a lot of time, but we will talk about let's talk about some of the exciting ones. And we were just talking earlier about these electronic earmuffs, and I was saying that these have taken away every excuse y'all had for wearing hearing protection, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We know that these, and there's lots of models of these, And you can go ahead and model those. They fit just like regular earmuffs. They're Bluetooth. They also have microphones built in. So when that sound goes over 82 decibels, they mute. What I love about them, and especially in the grain handling industry, is that you can attach a mic. You can communicate with, folks at a distance. You're going to be able to hear better because you can adjust that volume. So you're going to bring that volume up if you need to hear what's going on over there at the corner of that room. You can also spy on folks, which is really kind of the coolest part of these. But you can attach them to your hard hats, and you can have a microphone attached. So this really is a wonderful innovation, right? We have, and I will point out, those have come down in cost. So if you're wondering about the price of those, this pair right here, you can get on a certain, I'm not gonna say the store, but a store online for about $55. So very affordable, make a great Christmas gift. These are just a pair that are about I think those are 34 noise reduction rating right here. They've got, your basic, got those online, $13. So there really is no excuse cost-wise not to be saving your hearing. Do you want to show do you have some of those silicone? Okay. And we do love we're really promoting the use of the silicone earmuffs. These are not them. But we do, these are great too. And Gretchen's going to show us how she's installing those. All right, so 25 cents a pair right there. No excuse not to be saving our hearing.
Thank you, Ellen. Okay, we'll go back to the slides. Maybe. And I should note that even small increases in that decibel level make a big difference when you're talking about the impact on your hearing health. As that level increases, your hearing is more likely to be damaged. And so you could see the time really makes a big difference. And finally, I talked a little bit about some tools that we can use. I talked about how my watch, this is an Apple Watch, but it will tell me when it's too loud. A great tool that you can download to your phone is the NIOSH sound app, and it gives you a couple of really important pieces of information. That is the level of decibels it is right now. I need to move my slide a little bit. And then the LAEQ option allows you to see the average noise over the last few hours, however long you have been. So with that, I will wrap up with this slide and just let you read that through. But ultimately, this is from our friends at Central State Center for Agricultural Safety and Health in Omaha. So with that, I'll wrap up, and I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, very good, Gretchen. I have no idea how Dr. James Wright would have done with that presentation, but I think Dr. Gretchen Mosier did absolutely incredible. Fantastic. Can you all tell we know each other a little bit? So again, we're going to open it up for questions. Please feel free to use the chat box. When Gretchen had up the slide that showed the different pieces of equipment, right, from a garden tool, all the way to a tractor and these different things, I now realize why my entire life I've been told, Johnny, use your inside voice. Charlie, I grew up on a 930 case tractor, no cab, open air. Y'all aren't gonna be able to hear me, but Dr. Charlie Herberg, what did you grow up on?
A 560.
A 560. So that explains everything about me and Charlie and where our hearing is. The other thing is that I'm a cheer dad. My daughter is a Division I college cheerleader. So for online, any of my fellow cheer parents, I really wonder what the decibel levels is inside competition cheer. But again, fantastic information, Gretchen. Let's see, what do we have going on inside the chat box right now while we're waiting on those questions? Gretchen, talk a little bit about, you can use the Kent Feed Mill Complex here or just another example, but maybe since we are here at the Kent Feed Mill Complex, in this environment, what is that particular area of the work environment that we really should be most conscientious about, the sound and the loudness and the impact on our hearing.
Well, I would urge people to really think about the noise that they feel is normal in a day. So that background machinery noise and things like that. I think we get used to it. We become desensitized to that noise. But when you come in and your ears feel kind of sore, that is one good indicator that it's probably been too loud for your ears, and your hearing's probably being damaged. I think I'm going to use a story from Dr. James Wright. He told me, so he worked in corporate health and safety for years, and somebody came into his office to file a workers' comp complaint about, they said they'd lost hearing because of noise exposure at work. And he said to them, "Have you been wearing your hearing protection?" And they said, "Of course." And he said, "Well, then you don't need to file a workers' comp claim because your hearing protection should have prevented your hearing loss at work. It must be from somewhere else," right? And that's a good mitigation tool as well.
That's a really good one. You know, Gretchen, a question, but first a little bit of a statement. I found that throughout my career, right, when we've got PPE, whether it's hearing protection, whether it's sight protection, hard hats, doggone it, you'll walk by that employee or employees that are the repeat offenders and they're not utilizing their PPE in the manner that they should. So Gretchen, talk to us about that. You know, how do we get our employees to be utilizing the PPE when sometimes it's maybe just a little bit more convenient to take those off for just a moment? Gretchen?
It is a $1 million question. I agree. And I think if we knew that, we'd have less of a problem. I do think it is worth it to spend a little money on things that are comfortable for employees. They will not wear PPE that is not comfortable to them. So I think it's worth it to spend a little money, particularly if the noise is loud and the severity of the noise is high. So that's the first thing. I also would say, set a good example, right? When you walk through the facility, wear your PPE. I know it seems silly, but it is important. And then finally, have a personal conversation with those chronic offenders and say, you know what, we care about you. We want you to be able to hear, and this is going to damage your hearing long term, and you could do these things every day, and just make it personal is what I would do. And there's probably a list of research things that you could do as well, but ultimately it's everyone's choice, and it's a choice every day.
Yeah, that's great insight. I'm actually going to keep Gretchen up here with me for this next portion. The other thing that I would like to encourage folks, again, whether you're here in person or those joining us in line, you know, agriculture in general right now, we're going through a number of transformational shifts. One of those transformational shifts is in the workforce, meaning we have a lot of non-farm, non-rural folks that are joining the ranks of the agriculture industry. For those that are newer to the industry, they're looking at us old seasoned veterans to demonstrate, you know, the leadership and be giving the example. So knowing that they're watching us, our actions mean something. So we're the ones that really need to be setting the example for this newer generation in the workforce. Like I said, I'm going to welcome Gretchen back in just a moment, but I'd like to take a second to talk a little bit about Jeeps and our role in Jeeps. So as mentioned earlier today, and you've heard it throughout the day, you've seen it on the screen, I'm John Coppert. I'm the Executive Director of the Grain Elevator and Processing Society, Jeeps. Now, Jeeps, we choose to believe that we play a vital role in promoting safety. And we do this through our education and training efforts, and we do it throughout the agriculture industry. But just as my friend Jess McClure mentioned earlier in his comments with NGFA, we don't do it alone. There's nothing unilateral here. We do it through collaboration, partnering, and participation with organizations just like NGFA and others. Now we do this to share our combined knowledge. We do it to improve practices, but most importantly, we're doing it to enhance workplace safety and the safety of every single person employed throughout the grain processing, feed, and agriculture industry. So every single one of us have a role, even when we need to put that bad cop hat on to do the things that Gretchen shared. So at this point, I'm actually going to welcome Gretchen back. At this point, Gretchen is going to share with us important insights on staying safe during extreme heat. And Gretchen, if this presentation has something to do with baling stubble clover hay, when it's 105 degrees outside, you will have made my day. If it's not, I'll ad-lib that one at the end. So Gretchen, let's turn things back over to you. The floor is yours.
Okay, I'm back. So the second presentation, and this is a shorter one, so I'm going to try and work through this quickly. It's a cool day today, but all of us who have lived in Iowa know that it's just a matter of time, right, before it gets warm again. And so keeping workers safe during periods of high heat, and it's hot in here. So how do we make that work? So first I want to define for you what we mean by high temperature. Note that we don't call out a certain value in being high temperature, in part because in different parts of the country, people think that high temperature means something different. If you lived in Texas, 100 degrees Fahrenheit might just be another day. In Iowa, that's pretty darn hot for us. So temperatures that are significantly higher than normal is the definition. Sources in agriculture, of course, sunlight, confined space, conditions outside, and machinery can sometimes give heat, as well as we know what happens, heat stress, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke. And we'll talk more about those symptoms here in a little bit. But what I'd like you to know about is this idea of there's at least, when we talk about heat-related illness, there's two sources of heat. One of those is environmental, and that is what we often think about when we think about hot weather, right? It's hot out, right? And you see those factors underneath: air temperature, humidity, radiant heat, air movement. But the second piece of that, the second component, is what we call metabolic heat. It's generated by our body, and that is the part that we have less control over. It is related to both our workload, our weight, and our physical activity. So where are those high areas of heat in your facility? And I would point out, I'm asking about environmental heat in this case. Where are those? So drop those in the chat and we'll see what comes up. While we're waiting for that, and I'll let you all in person here take a look at those. I will talk a little bit more about environmental and heat, and particularly metabolic heat. So environmental, metabolic heat both contribute to heat-based illness, and workers that are most susceptible to heat-based and environmental heat and metabolic heat are those that are working strenuously. So strenuous is a term that means different things to different people. But employers should be aware of two worker characteristics that might influence positively someone's susceptibility to higher temperatures. One of those is the physical activity of the job itself. But the second is their body weight. Those who are overweight or obese, or even those, you probably all know people who seem to have hot blood, right? They're always warm. They are probably going to heat up a lot faster than those who weigh less and those who have seemingly a colder blood flowing through their body, right? And so it's important to know that when we acclimate workers, as the seasons change, it's helpful to note that some people will acclimate rapidly, others not as quickly, and giving them some time to let their body get used to things. So how might these workers mitigate the heat that they are clearly working in? And you can see on your left, what could that guy be doing? And then on the right, what could that person be doing? I've got some great props here to show you. The person on the left, what might that person be doing that could help him protect himself against the heat? He's not wearing a hat, is he? it sure would be helpful if he'd have a hat on. That would probably keep the sun off of his face. And this is a great tool. It's called a cooling vest, and you put it in the freezer, and then it provides a nice cooling center to your core, right? And that's important when you're heating and cooling your body is to control the temperature of your core. This also could be wet under water and put it on the back of the neck, around the neck. Also is good at keeping workers cooler in those warmer temperatures. And these are all fairly easy to get a hold of. Ellen can talk to those of us in person more about where you get these, but ultimately, and I want to give you a quick show of the hat. So there's the hat like this, but there's also these hats that have the back cover your neck, keep you from getting sunburnt as well. Sun safety is another topic for another day. But ultimately, these are some good tools, and I think in the photo, so I'm going to reshare this. This is a great place that they could really increase decrease their exposure to heat if they use some of those tools. And I talked a little bit about acclimation. This chart is from OSHA, and it talks a little bit about what those time and temperatures are and when you are at higher risk as a worker. And I think it's worth noting that the acclimation of workers is an individual thing for each worker, but it is important. It's also worth noting that workers handle heat very differently. And so we shouldn't apply these tools strictly, but they are rules of thumb, if you will. And anytime we are above 77 degrees Fahrenheit, there is a higher risk. Does it mean it's going to be a problem? Not necessarily, but it's good to take precautions when you're working with employees who are doing physical work outside or in an environment where it is expected to be warm. And so what's happening here? Has anyone ever had an employee that has had symptoms of heat stroke or heat exhaustion? Because this is one of the things that they do, is they sometimes pass out. Has anyone ever had somebody on the job that has felt this way? And what did you do about it? What are they doing in that photo? Giving him some water, right? I don't know what he's got in that red bag. Potentially that hat was his. PPE can often help you be more safe, but it can also heat you up, right? A hat or vests and things like this. I should note with these vests, they work especially well with high heat. They're not as effective with high humidity, and that's a limitation of them. But there are tools to use for these types of heat mitigation. And heat is something, so he says, yes, took them to a cooling area with water and towels placed under the arms. Thank you, Erica. That's a great idea. Cooling that core quickly is important when people are overheated. And some great OSHA resources there. OSHA's got a really nice program on heat mitigation. And if you have not had a chance to look at that, I would suggest it for you. I don't think it's going to get any cooler. Yes, sir.
Just call 911 because most of our medical.
That's an excellent point from our live audience here. He suggested calling 911. They have probably some tools in their tool chest to assist. Yes, good suggestion. Are there other questions for me at this point? The hot days will be here before we know it, and it's important to take care of your workers when they are outside. So with that, John?
Yeah, you can stay up here, Gretchen, with me.
Of course.
Please use that chat box. So, you know, growing up on a farm in southwestern Illinois where we were grain, livestock farm, we had a few hundred head of mama cows, so we put up tens of thousands of square bales of hay a day. And, you know, when you're a teenage kid and you're out there and you're baling hay, you strip the shirt off and everything because it's just cool. You do as a teenage kid. And I always wondered why my grandpa and why my dad always had on a long sleeve shirt, right? My example that I gave earlier, Charlie Herberg, about baling stubble clover hay, Jeff Atkinson knew what I was talking about. That's a real thing, and you'd be doing it when it was 105 degrees and you didn't think anything about it, but Grandpa Coppert and my dad, Vernon Coppert, they always had on a long sleeve shirt. As I became an adult, I learned to appreciate the long sleeve shirt. Now maybe it wasn't a big old heavy Navy thing like I'm wearing today, but Gretchen, talk to us about that. Talk to us about protecting our skin as well in the heat.
Well, as I said earlier, that is a different topic for a different day. Sun safety is also a critical part of working outside and protecting your skin from long-term damage, particularly those of us in this room all have skin that, to me, looks like could be sensitive to the sun, right? And not all of us, skin is another thing that differs among individuals. Some people are more sensitive to the sun than others, but all of us have some sensitivity to the sun, and it makes sense to wear protective clothing, of course, sunscreen and glasses, things like that. You mentioned your father and grandfather. Mine were the same, the long sleeve shirt, but it does raise the heat potential. So it is 6 of one, half dozen of the other is what I would say. You want to protect your skin, certainly, but you also don't want to have heat exhaustion or heat stroke or heat stress.
So Gretchen, you gave some great examples, but tell us those reminders. If I'm working in the heat, right, after a while, I just feel as though I'm adjusting to it. And maybe it doesn't feel as hot, or I'm not noticing it as much as I did 20 minutes ago, an hour ago. All of a sudden, I feel like I've gotten a little bit of a chill. And oh my goodness, that actually feels good because it's so hot. This should actually be a warning sign, should it not, Gretchen?
Potentially.
Yeah.
Human bodies, see, I'm still on. Human bodies are designed to sweat in the heat, and that it works really well when we have lower humidity. In Iowa, we know that sometimes when we have high heat, we also have high humidity, and we are not unique in that regard. There are other parts of the country that have that same type of heat, but that does limit the sweating, and sweating is the way bodies cool themselves, and you mentioned that coolness. I don't know if I'd call it a warning, but I'll defer that to somebody who knows a little bit more detail on that, but it is certainly an indication that your body is attempting to cool itself, suggesting it was overheated to begin with.
Yeah, great point. Keep using the chat box, folks. They're starting to light us up here with some questions and some comments, Gretchen. Cooling clothing. You gave an example here. Those of us that are in person can see it really well. Maybe the cameraman can go back to the cooling clothing. Can you describe it a little bit more for us,
Well,
Gretchen?
and potentially things that are lightweight, light colored, reflect heat more so than dark, tight-fitting, heavy-duty. The same types of things that we wear to protect our skin are the things that can be warmer to wear in hot weather and high temperatures. So again, it is a bit of a balance, and part of that is individual preference and acclimation to the heat. But I mean, I don't think there's one right answer here. And that's the key, I think, and that's what makes heat so difficult, is that there is not one way to manage it. It will be very individualized for each person. And I think as a supervisor, that's part of your job, is to keep an eye on your workers and offer them the opportunity to take breaks in shady areas and to drink water during those hot periods of the day, particularly. And if you think about our mail carriers, they're often out during those warm days wearing their shorts, right? There are places that we work in the grain and feed industry that shorts are probably not the safest thing to be wearing. But in places where they could wear cooler clothing, I think that would make sense from my perspective. It is never one solution across the board, I guess, is my biggest message.
So for those that are joining either in person, you can see the chat screen. Those that are joining virtual, you see the chat screen. Catherine is sharing some incredibly good resources right now from OSHA. The folks that are joining online, there's another thing that Gretchen just mentioned that I'm going to have her repeat it back to go into a little bit more detail, because Gretchen, I think you used a key word in there, acclimate. Acclimate. So how do we acclimate? How do we prepare maybe newer employees that come from a different variety of climates, right, that adjust, right? South Texas, when the temperature is 95 degrees, the relative humidity is also 90 degrees, right, Jess McClure? That's very, very different than maybe some other regions of the country. So how do we acclimate these folks to these differences in temperature and also the seasonality of it?
Yes, that's a great question. And it's not just me that thinks this, but OSHA has some great guidance on this as well. But it is a little bit at a time, right? Couple hours, a day with frequent breaks, those types of things, and just adding a little bit at a time as the heat goes up. We don't always have the luxury. Sometimes in April we get a day that is 95 degrees, right? And to just be aware that when these days happen, your workers are not going to be acclimated, and therefore they should probably take a bit more care in taking a break, drinking water, and wearing clothing that potentially, even having something like this and rinsing it with water, cold water, putting it around your neck makes a big difference when, particularly early in the season when you're warm. Those of us in the north often are not as acclimated to year-round heat as those who live in the south, southern part of the United States, and in other parts of the world where it does get a lot warmer than it does here, right? And so they may think that they are better acclimated, and they probably are, but they will need less time than, particularly if they move to the north. But even in their own climate, everybody kind of acclimates at their own rate. And so again, it is not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah, very, very, very good. Incredible comments. I'm going to keep Gretchen up here with me just for a second so camera can get a good view of this. For those of you that are involved in higher education, this is my shout out. We need to be hiring a whole lot more folks like Gretchen Mosier, incredible young faculty doing all these things for the right reasons and the passion that she has. And I'm extremely blessed on my Jeep staff that Gretchen is a participant. For those of you that are familiar with Jeep's Exchange, our big annual conference, Gretchen serves an incredible role in the educational planning committee around that. So Gretchen, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate that a lot. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and shift gears, bring up another good friend of mine. I didn't realize this was gonna be a homecoming. But it kind of is. So next year, they're either going to give me the mic back or they'll never let me have it again, since this is kind of a homecoming. But next up, we have somebody that's a really good friend of mine from back in Illinois, Jeff Atkinson. Jeff is joining us from the Grain Handling Safety Coalition, one of the allied partners, alliance partners for this. But Jeff, his day job, if you will, is with the Grain and Feed Association of Illinois. But Jeff today is joining us with the Grain Handling Safety Coalition, that is dedicated to improving safety practices and raising awareness in the grain handling industry. So whether you're in person or joining us virtual, please join me in welcoming my good friend Jeff Atkinson. So Jeff, thank you, John. Appreciate it.
My question is, did you stack them 6 high or 7 high?
7 high.
Of course you would.
But
I
needed to step on a bale because I'm only 5'8" on a
You and me
day.
both.
So, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I understand exactly what you're saying there. Yeah, us, those of us who are a little more stature challenged in that direction, that's kind of what we had to do. Good morning. I'm, as he said, I'm Jeff Atkinson with the Grain Handling Safety Council. We want to thank everybody for being here today for the Stand Up for Grain Safety Kickoff Week. And I just want to say, this event it's more than just a campaign. It's really a call to action. It's a reminder and a promise to safeguard the lives and the well-being of those who really form the backbone of this industry, those that work in the grain and feed handling industries. Our theme this year, as we all have a piece of this, speaks to the shared responsibility we have to capture and uphold a culture of safe grain handling. Grain operations, as we all know, carry inherent risks, from grain bin entrapments to falls to dust explosions and other equipment incidences. These risks are real. and they touch every corner of the industry. But the good news is these risks are preventable. We talked about that a little bit with hearing protection, that these risks are preventable. By committing to safety as a collective effort, we can make sure everyone goes home safely at the end of the day, which is what we all want to do. This week, we all need to take an ownership of our piece, whether you're a general manager, a safety manager, a supervisor, or a worker on the front lines. Your role is essential. And you're not alone in this effort. The Grain Handling Safety Council, along with the other sponsors that we've talked about today, all have developed free training materials and resources to help you navigate the various challenges, identify hazards, and implement best practices in your daily operation. These materials cover everything from grain bin entry to housekeeping to dust control, and they're readily available and designed to empower you with the knowledge to make a difference. I encourage everyone to take a part in the training sessions, share these resources with your team, engage in open conversation about safety. Together, we can foster a mindset that safety isn't an afterthought, it's a shared commitment, a habit, and a culture we proudly build. As we embark on this week of awareness and education, let's remember, we all have a piece of this. It's our collective responsibility, and it's within our power to make a safer future for everyone involved in this vital work. Let's stand up for grain safety together. Stay safe, stay committed, and let's get to work with the safety.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you again for joining us today. Very, very much appreciate it. There you go. I'll hand that back to you. Next up, we have Barb Grove. I know Barb pretty well personally, gotten to know her over the last year and a half as she is the past president of Jeeps. And if you really want an opinion on John Coppert's LinkedIn social media, ask Barb Grove. She'll tell you all about it. Barb is one of the founding members of Stand Up for Grain Safety, and she'll be sharing insights on stand-up participation and the valuable resources that are available to each and every one of you to support these safety initiatives. So joining us remotely today is Barb. Oh, there's Barb. So please join me in welcoming Barb Grove. Good morning, Barb.
Hey, good morning, everybody. So sorry I couldn't be there with you in person today, but we all know work happens. And so I'm on site at one of our facilities today in a food safety audit. I work for Central Valley Ag, and we're an agriculture cooperative in Nebraska, Kansas, and Iowa. So I'm on the front lines doing what you guys are doing every day and doing what we're trying to help to protect our people so they're going home every day. And I just wanted to share a little bit about the resources. You guys have been seeing resources, hearing resources, but we want to make sure everybody there in person and everybody there online knows where they can go for more resources and free resources. That is an important part of the Stand Up for Grain Safety Alliance group and ambassador group, is that we want to make sure everybody has the material in hand if they need it. So our standupforgrainsafety.org site has a lot of great resources. We go to the Stand Up Week, and if you pick any of these days and go to the bottom of your screen, first we give you a few interesting facts about that particular topic that you might not have known before. And then we have our speakers, and at the bottom of the page, here are some free resources just for that particular topic. We have presentations, we have online courses, we have checklists, and we have videos. So anything that you might want for that day's topic is on that resource days page. Now, if you want more resources on other topics, we have a resources tab at the top of the page. And those resources, we have all the topics that we have done in our past years. You just go out there and click on one of those topics. If you need some topics for your location or some fresh material in training your people, we've all gone through probably that same lockout tagout video that was made in 1962, and we've seen it over and over again. So if you want something a little bit fresh, we have it out here for you. And again, free resources from our alliance partners and other partners across the ag industry, such as those of you guys have listened to today. So again, we have videos. There are online courses, if you click on them, NGFA, GHSC. You click on it, it'll go to an online class or module that you can do. You can watch short training videos. So we wanted everyone to be aware that these resources are out there for your use, because that is one of the important things of the Alliance for Stand Up for Grain Safety, is we want to make sure everybody has the opportunity of learning. We also then, in those resources, we do have resources in Spanish also. So we're updating our sites to add more languages, because we feel people learn best in the language they feel the most comfortable with. So again, this week, there's a whole lot of opportunities they're going to tell you about. So we have fatigue tomorrow, safety planning and emergencies. We have housekeeping with a bonus rail safety. And then we also have alternative grain storage, those bunkers, those piles, those flat buildings. And on Tuesday and Wednesday afternoons, we have these sessions in Spanish. So if you haven't registered, make sure to register for a lot of great resources that we have this week. Thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much for joining us. Barb, looking forward to the next time we get to see each other in person. And again, thanks for those important insights and reminders. Now, what I'd like to do at this time, for those that are present, welcome. I'd ask you to join me up front here, the Iowa OSHA and Alliance, as well as the Alliance partners, because we're going to move forward. We're going to take the opportunity to sign an ambassador agreement, and under this agreement, essentially what it is it is the continuation and collaboration, this shared commitment that our organizations have in enhancing safety in the grain industry. So Adam, I think you've got the document, as well as maybe a couple comments. Adam, come on up. And I think we've got a mic floating somewhere.
All right, thank you very much. Just real quick, I want to talk about the Alliance and Ambassador programs. High level, the Alliance program, through the Alliance program, OSHA establishes formal relationships with groups committed to worker safety and health, and collaborates with them to prevent workplace fatalities, injuries, and illnesses. These groups range from trade associations, labor unions, educational institutions, community and faith-based groups, and even government agencies. Alliances that have completed an initial 2-year agreement and 1 renewal period are eligible to be promoted to the status of Alliance Program Ambassador. And that's what we're here to celebrate today. So I've got the documents and the paperwork up here to assign that ambassador paperwork, and welcome everybody to come on up and sign away. Thank you.
I'm taking the signed document back to Washington, D.C., so my boss, our president and CEO, can sign it, and then I will be delivering it to our friends at OSHA so that they can sign the agreement as well. So.
Very good. Thank you, Jess. Thank you. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you. Very good. So today's event has really highlighted the power of collaboration and shared commitment to safety throughout the agriculture industry. Again, a heartfelt thank you to our alliance partners for their dedication, hard work, and ongoing support. I believe that together we're making a real difference. Now, as we begin to wind down today, I'm asking everybody to hang on to just a few more moments, because we'd like to take another opportunity to recognize and thank those, in particular those that have been behind the scenes, who've made today and this week a success. Their hard work and dedication are truly appreciated. While I don't have the name of the individual who was outside operating the camera when Dirk and is it Roger? Roger, right there? Lucas, Roger Lucas, I think he was a director or something like that. No, I mean, for those that joined online, you weren't able to see firsthand the coordination of this, the way we here in person were, and I just think that Lucas did an absolutely amazing job out there. Dirk Meyer actually reminded me that it's not as warm out there as what I made it out to be, but the sun is shining, and that's a beautiful thing here in central Iowa today, right? Ellen Dyson, who I didn't meet until this morning, was fantastic, because she's the one that made sure that everything was on time this morning. Ellen is with the Central State Center for Agricultural Safety and Health at the University of Nebraska, and I think, Ellen, you're presenting again this week?
Presenting tomorrow.
Ellen.
Hear about how fatigue is
All right.
affecting your job.
So Ellen is presenting tomorrow. What time, Ellen, are you?
I'm going to say 10 o'clock Central Time, but if that's incorrect, I'm sure
Well, right now we're going to say that Ellen's on tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. So tune in for Ellen or somebody else at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. My good friend, Barb Grove, who joined us this morning, was CVA Co-op, also a Jeeps member. Salah Issa, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. I didn't know that he was with the University of Illinois. They didn't do so good in the tournament, so we'll kind of let that pass. I'm a Saluki from Southern Illinois. We have a friendly relationship with those guys in Champaign. Ann Grievenkamp with OSHA National Office, and Catherine Rylett with the Grain Safety Council. I really need to extend thanks to the folks right here at Iowa State for the incredible job that they did hosting this thing. You know, the only thing that I didn't see in this ambassador agreement was Iowa State locking in to host this every year. Now I'm completely off script, which is dangerous, but seriously, this is an amazing location here, and I think they did a great job. So to Gretchen Mosier, to Dr. Dirk Meyer, to George, you just did an amazing job outside. He didn't have a speaking engagement today, but one of my friends and my mentors, Charlie Herberg, you don't see him. Charlie and I have known each other for 20-some years. Charlie, you remember the infamous NIR project on starch that we did back in the corn grower days? A real pioneer in his field. The Iowa OSHA folks, Adam, Peggy back there in the back. Peggy's always smiling. For those that can't see her, she's fantastic as well. Larry, it was great to have you here. None of this is possible without our sponsors, so we thank them as well. Now, for those of you that would like to get an attendance certificate for today's presentations and participating, I believe there's going to be a link in the chat box at some point. Maybe I'll do some ad lib until it shows up. People are probably getting tired of hearing the ad lib, but at some point in the chat box, there will be your opportunity to get an attendance certificate for today. Now, to receive your stand-up participation certificate from OSHA, go to the Stand Up website. Barb Grove mentioned it a bit ago, and recognize where you'll be able to recognize your participation tab. Now here you can share how you plan to celebrate Stand Up for Grain Safety Week. After submitting your ideas, you'll receive a certificate that you can use for yourself and for your employees who will participate in the Stand Up initiatives. Again, check out that link. There it is, so we can understand how this will make an impact on our industry. Also, there's going to be a very short survey that will be popping up in your browser as you leave. Please help us complete these surveys. I know that Ajit's at our annual conference, NGFA just had their annual conference. These surveys matter, right? It's more than just taking a couple minutes of time. We as organizations, we as collaborative partners, we as an alliance, we utilize these survey results to better enhance the programs that we're offering. So again, thank you everybody for your participation. So now that our formal session has ended, we're going to invite folks to stick around for a bit if they would like in an Ask the Expert session. So feel free to utilize that chat box, type your questions into there, and we will address your questions as we see them. So again, thank you everybody for joining us today, and thank you for Iowa State University, Dirk Meyer, the Kent Feed Mill and Grain Science Complex for kicking off this Stand Up for Grain Safety Week. Everybody have a wonderful week. Thank you, everybody.
And those of you in person, be sure to take a bag before you leave.
Very good. So with that, let's see if we've got some questions starting to pop in here. Hey, Jim Lenz on my staff, my Director of Education. Thanks, everybody. So thank you, Jim, for joining us all morning. Yeah, very good. Jeff Dingo says, thank you for the presenters. Yeah, great job. Here's the schedule for the week. Folks maybe want to get a snapshot of that. Yeah, great job. Great to see so many participants. Wow, we're still at nearly 100 and, well, counting the in-person, we're at 160, 170 as we've wrapped up the morning. I think that's fantastic. All right. So, seeing no questions, I think we'll go ahead and close out. So, thank you, everybody. Everybody have a wonderful rest of the day and wonderful week. Thank you to everybody online as well. Wouldn't be possible without all of you. So, for everybody that joined us